No, it was this one. It was that center one. Yeah, won't you tell me?
What was that strip of membrane?
Yeah, right here.
Proper precautions are followed. There are also
What about that?
Playing a video.
Some big juice in that one.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna try to find what I want to put in the box, and I'll try to get them dusted first. This was the non-enhanced one.
You are watching exclusive footage
I need you to try one.
of the Cook School from Butcher Barbecue, David Bosca. I want you to
won't
watch
make you.
these ribs. Look at that. How tender and how juicy and how easy they cut by the hands of David Bosca. Butcher Barbecue.
No, no.
That's a great job, David. Hey, welcome everybody to the Al's Nest Barbecue Show. Steve Ray with you, your barbecue correspondent on this Thursday night in Ottawa. We got a great show lined up for you tonight. It's a flavorful show. I'll go ahead and tell you that much right now. But first, I want to remind everybody that we are brought to you by Michelin Tires from the Michelin Defender LTX. Bam. That should be coming up right now. No, that's the green. We're brought to you by Green Mountain Grills. All the Green Mountain Grills in stock now at the Al's Nest Barbecue store in Ottawa. We just got a big shipment in. We even got the old ones in. Also brought to you by Michelin Tires from the LTX to the Michelin Pilot. Your family deserves to ride on Michelin tires, the best tires money can buy. And also brought to you by Butcher Barbecue and all the great products from David Bosca and the Butcher Barbecue family. Grilling Addiction. If you haven't had that yet, make it a point to get it. It is fantastic rub, Grilling Addiction. Available at my place, the Al's Nest Barbecue store in Ottawa. Jeff Maxwell is back in the remote studios, keeping everybody in chat straight. Behave yourselves, or Jeff call you out. And also, I want to remind everybody that every Thursday night we are brought to you by the Backyard Smokers Barbecue on Facebook. It's our broadcast partner, Wes Phillips, and his friends, doing a great job of keeping everybody up to date on Facebook as far as barbecue and grilling is concerned. They've got about 100,000 followers and 100,000 members all over the world. You can just watch the people. You can just sit there and watch them post questions, suggestions, what ifs. This is what I got. Very interesting stuff. If you are into the barbecue world, you can find all of that on the Backyard Smokers Barbecue on Facebook. We appreciate Wes Phillips and the gang. Hey, real quick, I got the Green Mountain Grills in this week since we spoke last, and I even got the older ones. So if you've been looking for, I guess they were the first generation ones, no Wi-Fi, just strictly a plain, I call it a classic pellet cooker. We have those in stock as well. So I think they're a little hard to find. Some people really like that, and we've got them. So we're gonna have a big announcement next week of what we're gonna do next weekend, the weekend following this. So make sure you join us. But right now, we got a great guest, a flavorful guest, I might add. This person is a food and travel writer, journalist. He has penned the Rotisserie Grilling book, written with Sabrina Bacchus, I believe. He also penned Kebabs, also with Sabrina Bacchus. the second most famous alum from the University of Utah. Had it not been for Richard Jarvik, he would have been the most popular. He has traveled the world writing of food, especially barbecue. He has cooked on everything from grates to rocks. We welcome to the show writer and journalist Derrick Rose. Derrick Riches. Boy, I messed that up good, didn't I, Derrick?
Man, your baseball fandom is coming through, isn't it?
It sure is.
Derrick,
Derrick,
baseball?
yeah, I do. I do like baseball, as a matter of fact. Derrick Riches of DerrickRiches.com. And if you want to check out his website while we're talking, please do. Barbecue and Grilling with Derrick Riches. One of the Derrick, and I'm not, you're on the show, and I'm not going to blow sunshine up your tail or anything, but that is a great website. You've got it covered on that website. I'm not kidding. People, I know millions go to it, but there's always something new and there's always something fresh. When I got back from David Bosca's barbecue school that I attended last weekend, I was checking out your webpage that Sunday night. And lo and behold, one of the main articles you've got on there was brisket injection. And that's what David was talking about the whole weekend was adding flavor to barbecue through injection. Now just on the front page of Derrick's website, this is just on the front page. Articles: Texas style beef rib rub, beef brisket injection, beef brisket rub recipes, best odds brisket mop, and red wine and herb marinated flank steak. And that doesn't even get to the pork part, Derrick. So you can obviously see, and it's easy to tell how important flavor is to barbecue, and how important in the different ways that you can get flavor into barbecue. And what I want to start with, I got a whole outline here. I've been really prepping for you, man. Like I'm going to call it the quest for flavor episode here on the Owl's Nest Show. And let's start off with injections. And you have done this far more times than I've done it. For people that we've got veterans listening, we've got new people listening. But let's just start it off with the Derrick Riches method of injection, what kind you use on what meats and things of that sort.
Well, I kind of actually remember when injections were very new in barbecue. Mm-hmm. And for me, it really started with pork shoulder or pork butts, and just, going that route, and exploring a lot of the traditions that went with it. A long time ago, most of the flavor you got onto barbecue came from mops. Mm-hmm. You'd have a basic seasoning, sometimes just salt and pepper, stuff like that. But then, during that cooking process, you kind of keep mopping, and that's kind of fallen away. People don't do that as much, I think, because you don't have to be as attentive to your pit like you used to. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of those mops got turned into injections, and people started coming up with a lot of different formulations for that. I kind of think of the injection in many ways in a way of marinating. I know a lot of people, a lot of the injections that are out there are basically water and a fairly basic seasoning, salt and pepper, and then kind of whatever kind of goes with that meat, chicken stock or vegetable stock with some sort of beef flavor, or, mm-hmm. Those sort of things. I like kind of a little bit of vinegar, because I like a tangier barbecue. So I'll use that a lot in injections, apple cider vinegar, and then I'll put in the sweet from apple juice. Sometimes I use a concentrate, just because if I really want an extra sweet to it. And then I like to add a little bit of oil, just a simple, straightforward kind of canola oil sort of thing, because I kind of think it helps thicken and hold it in place a little bit.
Derrick, when people come in the store, and I try to direct them to injecting, because I carry a lot of injections now. And I believe in injection, and they're almost, they look at you and they're almost scared, like they're gonna over inject something. And have you found that in your travels that people are leery at first, but if you just get them to do it, it ups their barbecue game immensely.
Yeah, definitely. And, people do have that fear. I remember teaching, some barbecue basics like 20 years ago. And, I'm just throwing on rub and on some ribs and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's way too much. It's way too much. It's like, don't worry. It mellows as it cooks and the meat holds on to what it wants. And the same thing is really true with injection. You can't put too much in there. It's just not the space for it. But you can use an injection that's way too flavorful. It's overpowering. So, you want to keep it, mostly liquid. A lot of times, like just a lot of water. You're adding moisture. That's a big trick of what you're doing here. Mm-hmm. Just don't pick insane flavors, and you'll be fine. It's not rocket science. It's not going to be that complicated. And, any excess is just going to leak out anyway. If you're over injecting.
Have you ever tried anything that didn't work out that comes to mind?
I've experimented with some different things. I found that a lot of kind of earthy spices or things like that will tend to be overpowering. Mm-hmm. Things like cumin or stuff like that. If you want to put some heat in there, you've got to be pretty sparing about it. And it does kind of depend a little bit on what you're injecting. I mean, if you're doing pulled pork, you're doing a big pork butt and you're injecting and you're gonna pull it, well, you're kind of taking it apart anyway. If you're doing a brisket and you're going to be doing slices and stuff like that, well, you might have a little bit more of an issue with, getting too much in one spot. You might get that spot where there's just overpower.
Yeah, overpowers it. Yeah.
I mean, the great thing about pulled pork is, you pull it and you kind of mix it around, you mix it through, so you have that. Every bite of pulled pork in my mind should have a bit of variety to it. It should be the white and the brown. It should have a little bit of bark to it. It should have, the flavors that go with it. So it does kind of depend a little bit on what you're doing, I think.
Yeah, I try to explain to people, especially in a pork butt, because that's everybody. It seems like after chicken, pork butt's the most popular thing for people to smoke, because it is easier than some of the others, and it tastes good. And one butt will feed so many people economically. And I try to explain to them. I said, you can put anything you want on the outside, but the meat doesn't absorb it. It stays on the outside, and it'll make a great bark, and bark will be tasty. But to get flavor down in there, you've either got to inject it before you cook it, or when you start pulling it, you've got to add some liquid flavor or rubs when you're pulling it and mix it up good to give it some flavor. Because Derrick, I tell you, some people love pulled pork with just nothing, nothing on it, just the meat and the way it comes off the smoke. But I don't. I like it to have a flavor profile. And I tell you, the best one I ever tasted, a fellow came over to the shop one time. We did a whole hog, and he did a bunch of butts. He was feeding at church, and he did a Caribbean flavor, and I think he had mango juice and all sorts of these Florida flavors in it. And man, I tell you what, when they were done, they were fantastic. He really stepped out of the box. And made a product that was, I thought, far superior to anything that I had done, up to that point. And, they just gotta, step out of the box a little bit, and don't be afraid to get that needle and mix it up like that brisket rub you were talking about. Do you remember what all the ingredients were? I know you've written a million recipes. But
I should have looked at it. I'm not sure what's on that.
It's okay. It was I think it started with a beef stock, and you added a lot of a lot of spices to it. And that's one thing that David does at Butcher Barbecue at the school. He explains when he's making up his recipes for rubs. There, it's. I tend to be too simple. I tend to be maybe just use somebody's injection like David's and mix it with beef broth or mix it with water and use a 2-part step where I should be doing like you did and like he does, adding a little bit of rub here and there. And you had a great tip on that on your webpage, DerrickRiches.com, about letting that injection sit just a little bit so all of the spices would break down and absorb into the fluid, into the liquid, so that number one, it won't stop up the needle, and number two, they get involved in the fluid, in the liquid, and they spread out in the meat better. I thought that was a great piece of advice because, guilty as charged. Always in a hurry. You start trying to inject it, and nothing comes out. You got to sit there and play medic to your needles.
Yeah, I mean that's the quick lesson learned is watching what's going in your injection, because there's nothing more frustrating than clogging a needle and having to sit there and pull everything apart. But if I'm doing injections, a lot of times, because it's like, you get up in the morning, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to be putting this on the smoker, I'm going to be cooking for a while, and I want to get this on by, 8 o'clock in the morning, or, whenever you want to start. It doesn't work out that way. You're always running late. You're always kind of in a hurry. So I usually make up the injections the night before. And, the salt, that dissolves quickly. Sugar, that dissolves quickly. But that's why I like a hint of something acid. And, it can be lemon juice. It can be orange juice or, any kind of fruit juice or something like that. Mix that with, if you're going to be using spices, because it will get in there and it will kind of dissolve that more effectively, and it breaks down that flavor and kind of helps spread it out. So it mellows it a little bit, but it helps it kind of get out there a little bit. So you don't run the risk of having kind of something overpowering in a spot.
Now when you've done, I know you inject your brisket and pork butts, but when you do ribs and chicken, and even talk about turkey at Thanksgiving time. Turkey is one of those things. You pump it up, but then we don't. But then we're scared to do a chicken. We'll do a turkey, but won't do a chicken.
Yeah. No. Oh yeah. The turkey injection is a game changer for me. I mean, that's just I grew up on bad dry turkeys. And, not doing that. But yeah, no. I mean, chicken has so much opportunity for you. And actually, one of the great things about, poultry in particular is, depending upon, if you're doing like a whole chicken or a whole turkey like that, you get that under the skin. Even if it kind of leaks out the meat, it stays under the skin a bit.
Yeah.
So it can travel, it can stay there. If you're doing, it's like, I don't always inject like thighs or chicken pieces. I mean, sometimes I have. But I'll try and work it so that I keep that skin folded in, so I can hold it. Anything that leaks out, I kind of hold it there where I want to keep it. But yeah, you can pretty much inject anything. But I think the real important places for it, and where I first learned it was on like whole pork shoulders. I mean, it's such a big block of meat, and when you're thinking, oh, I'm putting a rub on it, and it's, it's 6 inches, 7 inches thick in some places, and that's a lot of meat that's just not getting any flavor to it.
And you got to put the needle in that thing to get any flavor. As far as injectors go, do you have any fancy kind, or do you stick pretty much with the simple? The simple syringe that usually maybe sometimes even comes with the injection kit?
I've had a lot of them. The one I generally use is a simple, straightforward injection needle, because most of the time when I'm cooking, I'm doing it because I'm either testing a cooker or I'm trying out a recipe. So I'm not cooking, 10 pork butts at a time. I might be doing one, or you know, or a relatively small amount of food. You know, I mean, when it comes to injectors, my recommendation is to buy the injector for the quantity you're going to be injecting. You know, I mean, make sure you get a good one. Make sure you look at the reviews and you know that the holes aren't too small, the needle's not too narrow, you know, that's going to work well. But, you know, I mean, you can get a power injector for, you know, like $200. And if you're doing 20 pork shoulders at a time, or you're doing whole hogs, man, that's the way to go, because your hand will get tired real fast.
But for the home cook, the backyard guy, the
backyard.
the little disposable one, even they work great. You know,
they work fine.
You could imagine all the injectors that a guy like David Bosca has been given by companies to try this out, and you know what he used at his school, the little one that he takes out of the plastic, the little plastic one that he gives away with every bottle of injection, the little simple one, and when he's done with it, you know, he just undoes it and throws it away. So they're so cheap, and they do such a good job. They do such a good job.
I like to see that. I've actually been to barbecue classes where it's like, oh, and you know, we're going to be using you know, this injector, it's $90, and we're going to be using, you know, the temperature, you know, $300 in temperature monitoring equipment and a $150 knife. And it's like, if you're teaching backyard cooks, teach with what the backyard cook's going to have. And, you know, you want to make it accessible. I mean, that's what we want with barbecue. It's what we want to teach with barbecue, is accessibility. It's like everyone can do it. It's not hard. You just need to learn a few basic things, and it shouldn't be a huge investment in equipment.
No, and you know, when people when they taste the barbecue that we do, and like when we have a bigger cook, we'll still inject. I've got the big 1 gallon injectors that I buy from Sweet Smoke Q, Jim Elzer, down in Florida. That big, it looks like the garden sprayer, and that's what it is. But instead of a sprayer, it's got a needle on the end of it, and those are $40. And
I mean,
you
they're
can,
not bad.
and man, you can go through 10 or 20 butts, literally in 20 minutes, and get so much injection in each butt, even when you're doing quantities. And then you know, Derrick, when people taste it, they taste something that they're not used to tasting. You know, because they're not used to making it at home. Their wives or husbands don't do it that way, and they always wonder, you know, what's the taste? You know, why does it taste better? Well, it's simply, I always go back to injection. That it is something that you put in it before you start cooking. And you know, I like to inject and let it store overnight. You know, let it sit in there and work the meat. Now, do you ever let it sit?
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'll do that. I mean, sometimes it's just because it's, you know, it's better to get everything prepped the night before. But yeah, you're giving it that opportunity. You know, I mean, people talk about, you know, injecting versus like brining. But if you're using, you know, most of injections contain salt, and you're injecting that in there, it's not dissimilar from what you're doing, but you're putting the salt deep inside, and you know, there it has that opportunity to draw out the moisture from the, you know, the meat itself, and kind of blend it together, and then kind of let that back into the meat. So you know, it blends really well.
And it just sits there and just, like you say, blends. It absorbs. It gets happy, and even with the rub on it, and let that rub turn to that. I like when it turns to the watery, almost a paste-like substance before you put it on. That way, you know, you're going to get a good dark, sugary type bark, especially on the pork butt, and and you know, that's what you're striving for, and that's how you get it, and it's so easy to do it. If you know, you got to step back and maybe read a few articles, watch a few shows. Go to your website. Is DerrickRiches.com is one of the best places I've ever seen to go to get instruction, and to get recipes. Not only the instruction, but the recipes, and reviews too, Derek. The ones you do on all those smokers and cookers are they're an immense help if you're looking for a new smoker or a new type of smoker, like a pellet smoker or a drum smoker or a barrel smoker, something like that. You really run the gamut on those things. Let's talk a little bit about marinades. I've never been a real big marinade guy. Tell us about your marinade, your processes, and your recipes for marinade, and why you do it, and what it does, what you feel like it does to the meat in prepping it for the smoker.
Well, marinade's gotten a lot of bad rap over the last several years. So a lot of people, it's like, oh, they don't work, they don't do anything. I marinate for high temperature cooking. I don't marinate generally for barbecue. I don't find it's as effective. I mean, for me, if I'm doing low and slow, then I'm doing injections, I'm doing rubs, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. In many ways, it's like, particularly, when you talk about, putting your injection and your rub on there and then wrapping and letting it sit overnight, in a way, you're actually marinating. Mm-hmm. Anyway. But I'm a firm believer in using marinades for grilling and for high temperature cooking, because it makes what you're eating actually safer. When you do high temperature cooking, you run this risk of cancer-causing substances forming on protein. There's a chemical reaction at high temperatures in meats that cause carcinogens to form in that meat. And a marinade reduces the risk of that by as much as 95%.
Wow, I've never heard this. I've never heard this.
This was established like 20 years ago. There was a lot of studies on it. So, and it's been proven again and again. It just makes it safer. It prevents that chemical reaction from occurring. And, what we're talking about is a marinade that has a vinegar oil base to it. Mm-hmm. When people would say, oh, well, what kind of marinade should I use? I said, think about a marinade like Italian dressing. It's oil, it's vinegar, and it's some seasonings. Yep. That's a perfect marinade. And you can buy Italian dressing and you can use it as a marinade. It works great.
And how many times have we been watching television and watching competition food shows, and everybody, that's the go-to. Italian dressing is the go-to marinade almost every time. You know it? Mm-hmm. I'm going to put these chicken thighs in this Italian dressing. I'm going to put this deer meat in the Italian dressing. I'm going to put this chicken in the Italian dressing and let it sit.
And that's an example I use simply for simplicity, because everyone knows what Italian dressing's like. You'll actually save yourself money just buying yourself the vinegar you want to use, the oil you want to use, and then the seasonings you want to use. But yeah, for high temperature cooking, I marinate a lot. And it doesn't even have to be for that long. I mean, you're cooking chicken breasts on your grill, they're fast, marinate time of like 15 minutes, mm-hmm. and you're good to go. That's all you really need. It protects it from the high temperature, and it puts a seasoning on the surface of it. Marinating is not about, getting flavors deep inside things or changing the structure of meat. It's about a surface seasoning and making your food safer to eat when you cook at very high temperatures.
It's exactly right what you say. You can, the few times that I have marinade, I'm not a marinade guy. I've just never been one. But the few times that I've done it, I've always thought, wow, this is going to give a real super tasty pop. And I've used some of the best marinades, or some of the most popular, I should say, out there. And I'm almost not disappointed, but I go, that wasn't as strong as I thought it was going to be. And, then looking at it, you think, well, you still want to taste the meat first. Mm-hmm. Like I say, like we were talking about last night, we didn't want to taste. You taste, sometimes you put so much stuff on it that you don't taste the meat. You taste all the rubs, the injections, and all the other stuff that you put on it. But the meat just doesn't stand out. And I think, I think what you're saying now, it makes sense that the marinade's not going to really change the taste of the meat. It's just going to add just a little bit of a different flavor.
Yeah, it's about enhancement.
Yeah.
It's about enhancing. I mean, that's what we're doing with barbecue. We want it to taste like meat. We want our pulled pork to taste like pork. We want our ribs to taste, our brisket to taste like brisket. But we want to enhance that. We want to add to it, And, the easiest way is with salt, but, depending upon the profile. And like what you were saying earlier, it doesn't have to be this very kind of typical Kansas City barbecue flavor. It can be so many flavors. I mean, I've had smoked ribs done in a teriyaki style. I mean, it was cooked just like barbecue, but it tasted like a pork teriyaki. And absolutely wonderful. You're not going to win a barbecue competition with it, but, it's good.
The best food isn't necessarily done in a competition. I mean, that's good one bite food, and it is. It's great. It's great one bite food, but
Right.
I still think the best food's done on your back porch, my back porch, or our friend's back porches. That's where I think the best food is done. Hey, let's hit on rubs a little bit as far as trying to get flavor. To me, that's what we're talking about with my guest from Austin, Texas. Now, Derrick Riches of DerrickRiches.com. We're talking flavor and barbecue tonight. And I got the idea. I was and this is for all the new people joining us, Derrick. I got the idea. I was at a cooking school in Mulberry, Tennessee, which is you go down to where the gravel road or the paved road turns to dirt, and then take a left. And I was there with David Bosca at Butcher Barbecue. And what I took away from that school is David injects everything that he cooks. And it's just to add flavor. The flavor profiles, Derrick, that he was using were incredible. I mean, they were. Of course, David's is a food scientist, just without the PhD attached to it. And but the flavor profiles that he was using, and it started with a liquid, whether it be a beef stock, vegetable stock, butcher barbecue injection, and then he would add what it was something I don't do that I want to start doing is he would add different sorts of seasonings to it, like rubs. What are some of your favorite rubs to add to your injections that seem to even make the injection more elevated before it even goes into the meat?
Well, I mean, first of all, that's kind of one of the things I've always preached. I see people, it's like, oh, I inject with this, and then I put a rub on this, and then I might use a sauce, after that. And it's like, for me, you make your rub, and this is the core of your flavor profile. You combine that with, whatever you're going to be using for your injection, whether it's a broth or whether it's just water or, anything else. And you also use that as the flavor profile for a mop or a sauce or anything else you can do. You carry that all the way through. You have that consistency.
That's good advice.
Because, I mean, I've had barbecue before, and it's like, there's something inside the meat that completely clashes with what's on the surface of the meat. And that's, you injected something and then you put something on the outside that was completely different. Yeah. And, you start getting these clashes of flavor or where it just gets too complicated. Rubs are another thing that you can kind of go any direction with. There's so many possible options, so many possible combinations. I kind of keep a lot to the old school formula. This was the way I was taught it with barbecue, and that is you do a third of sugar, a third of salt, and a third of everything else. And your everything else is going to be your black pepper. It's going to be, whatever kind of herbs or spices you like to use. I like to do a heat profile of red, black, and white pepper in there. You get your cayenne or your chili powder or something like that. You combine that with your black pepper, and then you add white pepper, because those heats hit your tongue at different places.
Exactly.
So you get that flow of heat. You know, if you want something spicy, if you want that heat to it, this makes a continuous heat without being overpowering in any one direction. It's, you know, it's not like just a pure cayenne hit or a pure black pepper hit. It's a much rounder, more complete heat. And so I'll do that a lot. And then, you know, I'll throw in a little bit of something that's a little bit more earthy. You know, cumin's a good example of that. But, you know, I've used coffee works, ground coffee.
It's amazing. It's amazing how many coffee type rubs are out there right now.
Yeah, I've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It seems crazy. It seems like that it's going to be, you're going to have a graininess, or you're going to be tasting too much coffee. But, you know, as that cooks, it mellows out. It becomes a very broad flavor. It's not overpowering. It dissolves into what you're putting it on. And it kind of gives a good foundation flavor to everything else that you put in there.
You know, the another rub that I see at our store that really is taking off is a lot rubs with a lot of heat. People are really looking for hot. I don't know if that's something that is just started, or maybe it started before I got into the retail business. But man, heat is where it's at as far as people, you know, looking for the hotter the better. You know, how hot is that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, no, that ain't hot enough.
Yeah, that's always been a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been there. But what I find is that, you know, if you want like a hot, spicy pork rib, I'm going to kind of suggest that you want to add a sauce to it later. Because no matter how much heat you try to put in that rub, it's going to mellow as it cooks.
Yeah.
It's gonna taper off a little bit. But yeah, there are people out there, and they will eat crazy hot things, and more power to them, I guess.
Yeah, you know, but you know, you think about it is we always experiment with rubs that I have doing chicken wings because they're cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a bunch of them. You can take, you know, 10, and 10 and make them, you know, all kinds of different flavors and stuff like that. And we use some Suckle Busters habanero heat sauce on our rubs on them. And then I remember when I opened up that the tube, you know, to take the little safety cap off, it almost brought me to tears. I mean, it just filled the air with hotness. I'm not kidding. It was unbelievable. So I got a Sharpie and I wrote caution on the top of it because it's so hot. But you know exactly what you said though, Derrick. When you put it on chicken wings and then you cook them, man, that is the best tasting stuff. And it's not burn your tongue off hot. It's get your attention flavors, what I call it. It's not really the heat that you're getting. It's a very, very fast. I'm not going to say a bold flavor, but it's almost like a flyby flavor that you get it and you go, wow, that was good, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and you can't wait to get more.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's capsicum, which is what you get out of chilies. That's the stuff that has all the heat to it. And the thing about that is that when it's brought to a higher temperature, it evaporates, it escapes away, but it will leave the flavor of you know, whatever you're using behind. So it does cut down that heat quite a bit. And that, you know, actually brings up really a good point. I hang out in barbecue shops and I go to these places and people come in and they go up to the tasters and they'll be tasting, you know, these rubs and stuff. I'm like, that's what it tastes like in the jar. That's not what it tastes like on the food. That's not what it tastes like cooked. You know, people don't appreciate that, you know, all of your spices and herbs change flavor when you cook them. And so it is kind of important to play around with that sort of stuff, to kind of have that ability to say, you know, and chicken wings, you're right, are a great way to do that because it's just a quick and easy way to get all those flavors and to do that. So, yeah, I mean, it's great that you do that because you have to taste it cooked. You have
But
to
you know,
taste
people do that
everything
at my
first.
store. We have I got a little tasty bar set up in the back, and I've got just about everything that we've got in there that's open now. And man, that's a bunch of open rubs too. You look at there and you start multiplying that times $9.95. That's a bunch of inventory sitting back there open. But people love to sneak back there and cook it. And you know that Bam habanero from Suckle Busters is just one that just stands out because I can barely stand to taste it. And then another one is Meat Church hot honey hog rub is another super hot
Yeah.
rub that when you taste it, it's like, whoa, my family will never go for that. But then when you use it, it gives you that, hey, that's not so bad. That's a good taste on that. I guess they have to personify the taste on the front end and in the rub because
Right.
they know Matt and all those guys and David that do rubs. They know that as you cook them, they're gonna back off a little bit,
Oh yeah.
and they don't want to kill you.
So in the raw form, these things are frequently just overpowering, but you can turn out with a really great product with it because it's going to blend up as a cook. So it's what it's there for.
Let's see. Derrick, that covers. I really appreciate you talking about flavors. It's an unending search, isn't it? That I once asked David Bosca during an interview, and I talk about Dave. Everybody thinks I'm in love with him. He's just a very accessible. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
and,
he is.
and
Nice
I
guy.
asked him one time. I said, David, is there a taste, an herb? Is there something out there that hasn't been discovered yet that you think is going to change the taste world? And without hesitation, he said yes. He goes, I believe it with all my heart. And that's why I guess people like him continue to look for it, and then people like us continue to look for it in the jars of rubs at the stores, and we're always looking. And it's one of those wonderful things about barbecue that I love to talk about, and I appreciate you talking about it with me tonight. And real quick before we go, what's the next project for Derrick Riches at DerrickRiches.com? Any books coming up, or I know you've been on the bandwagon with the wireless grill cleaner, which I think is a great thing. I've been practicing that for years and years.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to, I've been trying to get rid of wire grill cleaning brushes for a very, very long time, and who knows, maybe someday it'll happen. But I just have to throw it out every once in a while. Right now, I'm working on there's a couple of things kind of coming down the line. There's one I hope that I'm involved with. I hope if it works out, it's going to be kind of a game changer, I think. But right now, it's still really early, and there's a lot of negotiation going on. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have this going.
Well, good.
But I don't have a side decision factor on that. Other than that, I've still got a million recipes to write and about 1,000 more products to try and review because there's always something new.
And don't forget, Derrick is also on YouTube. He's got some fantastic grill and smoker reviews on there, and Derrick, I can tell they're in depth. They're not just, oh, this company sent this to me and it's wonderful and it's great and this handle falls off sometimes. But don't worry about that because this is great and this is great. But I know that wheel's off. But don't worry about that. That's okay. You really go in depth on those things, and you don't when they're bad, you tell them they're bad, or when they're good, you tell them this is good. You're horribly honest from a consumer standpoint, and I love that. I really like that about you.
Well, I try to be.
You don't sugarcoat it.
The worst feedback you can get when you're reviewing products is I bought, you said this was great and it's not. I hate you forever. I spent all this money because you told me to buy this and it's terrible. And I'm like, so.
And it fell out of the box.
So yeah, I'm kind of known for being a little bit mean when it comes to that.
Well, you do a great job. DerrickRiches.com, folks. If you haven't been there, make sure you go there and go there often. That front page is always changing, and he's got all of his reviews up there. It is a plethora of information about barbecue. Derrick Riches, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and effort. And next time, I promise you and I are going to get into the griddle.
All right.
Next time we're going griddle, full blown, full force, wide open griddle. Thanks so
All
much,
right.
Derrick. Have a great evening.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Derrick Riches from Austin, Texas. Now, appreciate him coming on. He is a fantastic writer and a fantastic journalist, and just one of the great good guy all around guys in the barbecue world. I want to take a few moments here to talk about David Bosca's cooking school that we went to. Sean Cosby, who owns Choo Choo Barbecue here in the Chattanooga area. If you're not from our area, dear, Sean's got a real neat little restaurant. It's a drive-in restaurant sort of thing. And he and I went to Mulberry, Tennessee, to Byron Chisholm's. It's like a mini ranch. Byron, of course, owns Bad Byron's Butt Rub, one of the more successful rubs that have ever been invented and distributed in the barbecue world. And he was nice enough to host us. And David and his brother Martin were there doing the school. And you know, I speak of David often because he is, like I said, very accessible, and he's one of those guys that he's like Heath Riles, he's like Malcolm. They give you your phone number and they tell you, now look, you've got our products. If you ever have a question, you know, don't hesitate to pick up that telephone and ask us. And that's just the kind of guy David is. And his school, I'm going to tell you, his school was a wealth of information. There's no really, you know, we always talk about barbecue secrets. What's your secret? What's your secret? I went to a barbecue school one time at Donnie Bray's Warren County pork choppers, and he was talking about his secret ingredient. He was going to give us his secret ingredient, and of course we were all on the edge of our chairs, and he held up a salt shaker. He goes, "That's it, salt." And so that's usually what it amounts to in barbecue. The secret weapon is not really an earth moving item or an earth moving event, but what the secret to good barbecue is it's kind of like Ben Hogan in the secret of his golf swing. He always used to say, "It's in the dirt," and it wasn't long before people understood that it was practice, and you've got to practice, and you've got to perfect your method, and that's what David teaches in this class is you have to have a method. No matter what your method is, you've got to stick to it, and you have to repeat this method time and time and time again. And if you hit on the right flavors, just what we were talking to Derrick about, that's how important they are. If you hit on the right flavors and you stick with the right method, you will make good barbecue every single time. Now, and I'm not just talking about contest. I always try to take what I learn in contest and use them in the food that I serve to my family, to my friends at the store when we do events. I always try to get a flavor profile that is common to me. I've got a flavor profile that I do on my pork butts that it's kind of like my trademark flavor profile when I do cooks at the store and we sell pork butts like Jeff and I did back on July the 4th. People get to know that, they get to know your flavor, but what makes it special is I've got a method and we stick with that method, and that's what David was talking about at his school. And not only did he talk about the method, he talked about flavors, and he talked about time management and getting your meat on at the right times and cooking them at the right temperatures for the right amounts of time. And it was a very comprehensive school, and you can go to David's website, butcherbarbecue.com, and you can actually purchase his school on an internet-based format. And I would really, if you're really serious about barbecue and you're really serious about becoming a better cook. I'm not talking about being a competition cook. Being a good barbecue cook and being a good competition cook are two different things. And David said, a lot of barbecue guys, can only do 4 meats. Well, that's me. I'm not a cook. I'm just a barbecue competition guy. But what I do try to do is when I learn something from people like David, I try to incorporate them in to my backyard cooking, and it makes your backyard cooking and your backyard meat even better than it is now. If you're cooking good meat now, go to a place like David Bosca, butcherbarbecue.com, and you can buy that video and buy it. And, go in with your buddies. It's internet based. Y'all can swap passwords, do whatever you want, and buy it. It's a little pricey, but you get 4 or 5 guys in. It's nothing. You will get a wealth of information, and I don't care how you get it, and because it's information, and it's like I did when I bought the masterclass version of Aaron Franklin's Brisket. Man, I wanted everybody to watch it. I used to play it at the store. People would come in and watch it because I wanted everybody to see how you can make your barbecue even better. And that's what these guys want to. That's why they do it. They do it for the money, but they want to spread the word. They want everybody to make better food. And especially I know for a fact that David Bosca, that's what he wants, is for you to make better food using the techniques that he teaches and his products and his flavor profiles. And that's exactly what we learned on last Friday and Saturday. David, it was a great school. I appreciate you having Sean and us up there. I can't wait to take another class from you. I'm going to buy that class on your website just so I can have it to reference it, because there were so many good tips, and you will learn some, I'm not going to call them secrets, but you'll learn some methods that you'll go, And I'm going to tell you one thing, the brisket method. There's one thing that David has in there, and I don't want to say it because I'm not saying it's a secret, but it is proprietary, and I would never, go against his trust as far as something that he taught that people paid a lot of money to see. But there's something that he does with his brisket that once you see it, you'll go, why didn't I think of that? And I've been doing it 7 years now, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I should have known to do that, and I didn't. But I guarantee you next time I'll do it. So David Bosca, thumbs up to you, and Martin, thumbs up to you. Byron Chisholm and your staff, thumbs up to you and all the good folks at Byron's Butt Rub Ranch. We had some great food. The girls there in the kitchen and the guys, Dave and all the guys were just super, and we appreciate you very much. Next week, we've got a big announcement. We've got something coming up, not this weekend, but the weekend of the 7th, that I think you're going to really be interested in, and we'll announce that next Thursday night right here on the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show. But I'm going to leave you now with a little more video of David Bosca at his school. Enjoy this, and we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you, Derrick Riches, DerrickRiches.com. Go there and see all the neat things that Derrick has. And until next Thursday, everyone, as Edward R. Murrow, one of my all-time heroes, said, good night and good luck.
No, it was this one. It was that center one. Yeah, won't you tell me?
What was that strip of member right there?
Especially if proper precautions are followed, airballs
Don't do juice in that one. Yeah. All right, I'm going to try to find what I want to put in the box, and I'll try to get them dusted first.